Hell is described as a place that is completely opposite to the presence of God's goodness and love. Hell is often presented as a warning, meant to teach us the importance of choosing a life aligned with God's ways. Jesus himself spoke about hell more than anyone else. He described it as a place of weeping and gnashing of teeth, where the fire never goes out. It's a place meant for the devil and his angels, but also for those who turn away from God and choose not to follow his path of love and righteousness. One of the names for hell that Jesus used is Gehenna. This was actually the name of a real place outside of Jerusalem, where trash was burned. The continuous fire and decay made it a powerful symbol of a place of punishment and separation from God. Jesus used stories to teach about the choices we make in life and their eternal consequences. He talked about a rich man who lived only for himself and ended up in hell, a place of torment after he died, unable to cross over to the comforting side where a poor man named Lazarus rested, in heaven. This story tells us the reality of hell and the importance of living a life of compassion for others. The Apostle Paul also warned about the consequences of rejecting God's love and choosing a path away from God's teachings, describing it as never-ending destruction, away from the presence of the Lord. In John's vision of the final judgment, the beast and Satan are thrown into hell, described as a lake of fire that represents the second death. This is not just physical death, but eternal separation from God, who is the source of all life, love, and happiness. God doesn't want anyone to choose a path that leads to hell. He wants everyone to come to repentance, which opens the doors to heaven, a place of eternal joy, peace, and the presence of God. In the Bible, angels are special messengers from God. They show up at important times to deliver messages, provide guidance, or offer protection. Like when the angel Gabriel visited Mary to tell her she would have a special son named Jesus. There are many different angels, and not all look the same. Some angels almost look like ordinary people, like when angels visited Abraham to tell him about his future son, Isaac, or when two angels went to help Lot in the city of Sodom. They looked like regular men. People could talk to them without realizing right away that they were talking to angels. But there are other angels who look extraordinary, far from normal human beings. Like in Daniel's vision, where he sees an angel who looks like a man dressed in linen with a belt of pure gold around his waist. His body was like a precious gem, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like polished bronze. Or when John had a vision on the island of Patmos, where he saw an angel coming down from heaven, wrapped in a cloud, with a rainbow over his head. His face was like the sun, and his legs were like fiery pillars. This angel was so bright and powerful that John could barely look into its dazzling light. Some angels even have several wings, like the seraphim, seen by the prophet Isaiah. It stood above the throne of God with 6 wings, 2 that covered their faces, 2 that covered their feet, and 2 with which they flew. And the cherubim, seen by the prophet Ezekiel, had 4 wings and many faces, a human face, a lion on the right side, an ox on the left side, and an eagle, making them look unlike anything on earth. Even though these angels might sound a bit scary, they often start their messages with, "Do not be afraid." They are not here to frighten people. They're here to bring good news, offer help or protection. Moses was called by God to lead the Israelites out of Egyptian slavery. He confronted Pharaoh with God's command, "Let my people go." And God worked through Moses to bring about 10 plagues on Egypt, including turning the Nile River to blood, sending swarms of locusts, and the death of the firstborn in every Egyptian household. Moses parted the Red Sea, allowing the Israelites to escape Pharaoh's army, and later received the 10 Commandments from God on Mount Sinai. Long after Moses, the Israelites forgot about God and started worshipping statues. So God sent Elijah to remind everyone of God's power. Elijah challenged the prophets of a false god named Baal. They sacrificed bulls on Mount Carmel, and Elijah called down fire from heaven to consume his sacrifice, proving God's power over the Baal prophets. During this time, it had not rained for 3 years, and everything was scorched and dry. But after Elijah's victory on Mount Carmel, he prayed, and rain fell from the sky, ending the drought. Elijah never died. He was taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire, showing his special place in God's kingdom. Elijah had a student named Elisha. Elisha performed more recorded miracles than any other prophet. He purified a poisoned well, multiplied a widow's oil to save her from debt, and even raised a boy from the dead. Elisha also healed Naaman, commander of the Syrian army, from leprosy, showcasing God's power to heal and save. After Elisha was gone, during a dangerous time in Israel's history, a new prophet named Isaiah emerged. He had visions of the coming Messiah and spoke of a virgin birth. In one of Isaiah's prophecies, he sees the suffering servant who would be pierced for our mistakes, foretelling Jesus' life and sacrifice. Long after Isaiah's ministry, a new prophet named Daniel served under several Babylonian and Persian kings, interpreting dreams that none could explain. Daniel prayed to God every day, and he refused to stop praying. Because of this, Daniel was thrown into a den filled with hungry lions. But God sent an angel and saved him. Daniel also had visions of future events, including the coming of the Messiah and the end of time. These prophets were powerful, not because of their own strength, but because of their deep faith and obedience to God. In the beginning, God created the world. In just 6 days, he made the sun, the moon, the stars, the land and oceans, plants, animals, and finally, humans. He called everything good, but humans were special because they could talk with God, love, and make choices. God made a beautiful garden for the first humans, Adam and Eve. They could eat from any tree except one, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God warned them that eating from this tree would cause bad things to happen. But a sneaky snake, the cleverest of all the creatures God had made, tricked them into eating the fruit. When they ate it, everything changed. They realized they were naked and felt ashamed. Because they didn't listen, pain, sadness, and death came into the world, and God sent them out of the garden. But God didn't leave them without hope. He made a promise. One day, someone special would come to fix everything and bring them back to him. For many, many years, God's people waited for this promise. This promise was passed down through generations by heroes of faith, like Noah, who built a huge boat to save his family and animals from the great flood. Abraham, who left his home because he trusted God's promise. Moses, who led God's people out of being slaves in Egypt. And David, a young boy who defeated a giant and became a king. All these stories had something in common. They showed that God always keeps his promises and that he was planning something amazing. All the prophets who could speak God's messages told about a coming Messiah, a king who would save everyone and his kingdom would last forever. Many years later, a baby was born in a humble place, a stable where animals slept. This baby was Jesus, the one everyone had been waiting for, the hero that was promised long ago. From his first breath, it was clear he was special. Angels sang, shepherds visited, and wise men from far away brought gifts. Jesus grew up to be a man who did amazing things. He healed sick people just by touching them or speaking a word. He made blind people see, and even calmed storms. He told stories that made people think and feel differently about life. He showed love to everyone, even those who were usually ignored or disliked. But not everyone was happy with Jesus. Some were scared of the change he represented. They didn't understand he was the king God had promised and plotted against him. Jesus was betrayed by a friend, and even though he had done nothing wrong, he was punished like a criminal. Jesus died on a cross, a terrible way to die. It seemed like hope died with him. But 3 days later, something incredible happened. Jesus came back to life. This showed that not even death is more powerful than God's love. It was the proof that Jesus really was the one God sent to save us and open the way to heaven. After Jesus came back to life, he visited his friends to teach them more about God's kingdom. Then he went back to heaven, promising to send help. That help came as the Holy Spirit, guiding us to believe in Jesus so that we can be close to God again. In the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, there was a man named Jacob. Jacob had to leave his home because his brother Esau was very angry and wanted to kill him for stealing his blessings. He ran away to a land where his mother's family lived, and there he met Rachel, Laban's daughter, by a well. Jacob fell in love with Rachel the moment he saw her and cried because he was so happy. He wanted to marry her so much that he promised Rachel's dad, Laban, he would work for him for 7 years. But Laban was a sneaky man and had other plans. Time passed quickly for Jacob because he loved Rachel so much. But on the wedding day 7 years later, Laban tricked Jacob by giving him Leah, Rachel's older sister, as his wife instead. Jacob didn't realize until the next morning and was very sad and still in love with Rachel. Laban said to Jacob that he did this because of a rule that the older sister should get married first. He then told Jacob he could also marry Rachel if he worked another 7 years. Jacob, still very much in love with Rachel, agreed to work longer. Even though Jacob felt tricked, he did not give up. He worked another 7 years to marry Rachel. During this time, Laban tried to make things even harder for Jacob. He kept changing how much he would pay him, doing it 10 times. Even so, Jacob kept working hard. God saw how hard Jacob worked and how Laban was not being fair. So God blessed Jacob with a big family and lots of animals, making Jacob very rich. This made Laban and his sons jealous and angry. Jacob realized it was time to leave because he was not safe near Laban and his sons anymore. He took his family and animals and left. Laban chased after him because he felt Jacob had taken advantage of him. But God told Laban in a dream not to hurt Jacob. When Laban finally caught up, instead of fighting, they decided to make a promise to each other not to cause harm. They set up a pile of stones to remember their promise and called it Mizpah and agreed to stay on their own sides of it. Laban said goodbye to his daughters and grandchildren. Then Jacob and his family went on their way. They never saw each other again. In the very beginning, when the world was new, God made a beautiful garden called Eden. Here God put Adam and Eve, the first 2 people, to take care of it. The garden was a perfect home, full of wonderful plants and animals, and Adam and Eve could eat the fruit from all the trees, except one. God told them not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. One day, while Eve was walking in the garden, a clever and sneaky serpent spoke to her. This wasn't an ordinary serpent because it could talk, and it was more cunning than any other animal God had made. The serpent asked Eve, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" Eve replied, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God said, 'You must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die.'" The serpent, wanting to trick Eve, said, "You will not certainly die. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Eve looked at the fruit. It was beautiful and looked delicious, and she liked the idea of being wise like God. So she took some of the fruit and ate it. She also gave some to Adam, who also ate. As soon as they ate the fruit, something changed. They suddenly felt afraid and hid when they heard God walking in the garden. But God knew what had happened. He asked Adam and Eve about it, and they admitted eating the fruit, but blamed the serpent and each other. Because of what they did, God said things would be harder for them outside the garden. They would have to leave Eden, and life wouldn't be perfect anymore. But God also made them clothes from animal skins, showing He still cared for them. The serpent was punished too. He was thrown out of the garden and cursed to crawl on its belly and be an enemy to humans from then on.